Risk and safety paradox involves tolerating the risk, time, and flexibility necessary for creative pursuits while still keeping the financial and operational costs under control to ensure your team's long term sustainability. So, in this paradox, leaders have to manage the tension between pursuing the boundaries of what people consider possible and protect the systems, people, reputation, and resources that allow those pursuits to be sustainable in the long run. So risk fuels progress and then safety preserves it. Without one or the other, innovation ends up collapsing. Now, in most organizations that are attempting to solve novel and ill defined problems, these forces are going to sit at odds with one another. Creative people who are typically the most innovative are drawn towards novelty and experimentation and sometimes aggressive timelines. Now, safety oriented leaders, which are typically the managers, are going to be drawn more towards predictability, more towards compliance, and more towards process control. Now, both instincts are right in the innovative process, but they are incomplete on their own when it comes to producing creative ideas and producing innovation and solving novel, ill defined problems. So, the challenge for leaders when it comes to navigating the tension between risk and safety isn't to eliminate one or the other. It's to mitigate it and govern them down to an acceptable level. Risk has to be contained in structures and process that still allow bold and creative action and preventing irreversible or catastrophic loss. And that's why effective leaders build systems that encourage a certain degree of calculated risk rather than reckless risk. And they do that by setting guardrails rather than enforcing cages or straitjackets on their people. So, safety during innovative pursuits or while attempting to solve ill defined problems isn't the absence of risk. It's a mastery of. Now, the way to operationalize this, or at least one practical way, when you're leading a new project that requires some degree of innovation or you're trying to solve some sort of ill defined problem, deliberately assign two lanes of assessment. One lane is the opportunity lane, and then the other lane is the exposure lane. The opportunity lane asks, what can we gain if this works? The exposure lane, on the other hand, asks, what do we lose if it doesn't? For as long as you're able to, you run both assessments side by side. When those two lanes converge into a decision, that's not you removing risk. That's you actually contextualizing risk and understanding it so that you can mitigate risk down to what you consider acceptable, whatever that happens to be. Now, this is the same approach I used when I was leading my platoon in the Arctic warfare project that I keep talking about. The conditions were inherently dangerous. We were isolated, cold temperatures, unfamiliar, and really, really dangerous terrain. We were traversing what was in all likelihood first ascent terrain, meaning no one had been there before, or not enough people had been there enough to document the dangers. So every day when we left camp, we were encountering new things all in real time. Now, part of how I mitigated those risks was by conducting a 10-day preparatory training in Breckenridge, Colorado, so that we could build individual and team skills and test gear before ever setting foot on the glacier as a way to mitigate risk down to what I thought and my leadership thought was an acceptable level. And so that structure and that process didn't reduce our ambition and didn't reduce what we thought was a creative solution to a hard problem. It made the ambition that we had actually feasible and actually executable. The lesson in this paradox and the lesson from that example is that safety and risk aren't necessarily opposites. They are interdependent forces when it comes to innovation. And when they are held in tension appropriately, they they can turn the pressure of perceived or real danger and perceived or real risk into a high degree of precision of action.